Hi, and welcome to episode 17, which I'm calling From Sucks to Sort of Okay. One of my friends yesterday reminded me that it had been about 6 days since I posted, so I thought, oh God, I better maybe get online and give everybody an update. Not a lot's happened. I think last episode I sort of said it's going to be a bit boring from here. So what I thought I'd do is I went back to episode 5 called Well That Sucks, which was around what I was going to expect from chemo. So I thought I'd give everyone an update on what actually happened, whether actually some of the things that I was worried about actually did occur or whether they didn't. So some of the things that they told us was around, well, the first thing I was complaining about was the number of appointments. I think at that stage I had to go see an echo to get my heart tested. That's not something you have to do every chemo appointment. So the appointments actually haven't been too bad, other than having to get the blood test on a Monday, which I did this morning. And I think I've been going in at 7 a.m, which is when everybody who's been fasting have been going in. Now I don't need to fast, so I'm probably going to change the time that I go in to probably around 9:30, 10, because apparently the lineup is shorter, because it took me over an hour to get in this morning. So we all know my second hate, which is the make sure you're on time. So obviously they're not appointments, but I think, you know, for the most of it, particularly with chemo, they've gotten me in at the time, they said. And in fact, yes, the last one we had was actually really efficient. So I haven't had to whinge too much about things being delayed. Hair loss was the next one. So as you know, I shaved my head probably 2 weeks ago now. But the hair loss has been a lot slower than I was expecting. So I've still got a little bit of hair and hair on, you know, you can see my eyebrows, although I do have tattooed eyebrows, so they shouldn't be too loud, but too bad, but even my eyelashes aren't sort of falling out yet. So it's going slowly. And I tell you what, being bald in summer is awesome, so that's great. Mouth ulcers, I haven't had mouth ulcers, which is good. I've been really diligent with gargling each time I eat, the salt water gargle, so that's been good. And I haven't really had a dry mouth, so I haven't experienced any of that sort of stuff. Fatigue's been the biggest one. I've got a bit of a plan, which I'll tell you about, but that's been the worst. And it's not surprising, you know, they're putting a lot of poison into my body, so of course I'm going to be tired. The sun and sun sensitivity, I sort of avoided going out, but then the other day I went for a bit of a walk and it actually seemed okay. I'm going to not obviously go out and sunbake, but as long as I slap, I think that's a good thing, because being out in the sun also makes you feel better as well. We talked about the pregnancy diet, so still avoiding everything. But the other thing I've noticed, particularly with losing my taste buds, which is the other thing that seems to have happened, and when I say losing, I haven't totally lost them, but food isn't tasting as good. So what it does is it makes me do really sort of weird combos just to see if I can taste something. What I've found is anything that's a bit sweet actually gives me the most taste. Now, being a diabetic, that's obviously something I need to watch. But somebody was telling me, and I can't even remember who it was, that apparently as the older you get, when you start to lose your taste buds, you lose your savoury first, and your sweet are the ones that are the most prevalent even in older age, which is why sometimes a lot of older people will eat a lot of sweet food or put a lot of salt on things because they can't get that taste. So that was really interesting and quite true. So, you know, things like honey on a crumpet it probably gives me the most taste, and as I said, I just need to be careful in how much honey I have, because I'm still dealing with high sugars, particularly after chemo. What else? Water. Oh, that's the hardest thing to drink. I go really well for a while and then I sort of don't, so I'm still having to really force myself, and having no taste buds for some reason, it makes it even more difficult to drink water. I don't know why that's the case. The toxicity is the interesting one. I don't know whether I mentioned this last time. We were talking to the oncologist around that, because obviously we have a boat that has a marine toilet on it. So we were asking him the question about whether or not it was okay to go out on the boat whilst I'm in cytotoxic. He was a lot more relaxed about it than the nurses sort of are. They're sort of saying 10 days you're cytotoxic. He's saying 24 hours, and that we would be fine the next day. So still being cautious around it, you know, obviously using my own bathroom, but even that seems to be okay. So yeah, just watching that, and we'll keep talking to the oncologist about that as well. So what's happening this week? So chemo number 3 tomorrow, so that's 10 o'clock. Then I see Dr. Diviana, who is the surgeon, on Thursday, and that's to do a measure to see whether or not the lumps have shrunk. So that's going to be interesting. He'll just do an ultrasound on that one. So my plan for this week is my diabetic educator and I have a second insulin pump setting. So as soon as my sugars start to go high after the chemo, I will switch to a new setting on my pump, which should start to deal with it. So we'll just play around with that. I have to be careful not to go hypo, but hopefully the pump will deal with it without me having to do it all manually. I know that I'm going to hit the wall either Friday night, Saturday morning. So I think for next weekend, my plan is just to lay around and watch Christmas movies, and not actually try and do too much. I just think I need to rest and listen to my body. I sort of put a bit of a flag in my work calendar on the Monday that if I need to take the Monday, I will, because I haven't really been taking much time off. And so Sharon and I have now locked that out just in case. And I think that's probably a little bit more sensible as well. So that's sort of the week coming up, and also what's happened over the last few weeks. So I shall be less slack, and I shall give more updates. But thanks for joining in. Bye.